Excellent. So it's 6:34. I'll call this meeting of the Winooski DRB to order. Welcome, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. We've got one large agenda item for tonight, but a number of other smaller items on the agenda. So the first order of business is changes to the agenda, and I'm actually going to suggest adding a little piece before we hear this application, just talking about some personnel changes on the DRB that have, I think, maybe kind of been announced, but we'll go through them, and acknowledging that this is a weird time to be welcoming a new member to the DRB. I have some thoughts on that. But before we get there, we have a public comment period, which is required in every public meeting of everybody in the state. It's an opportunity for anyone who has thoughts in general about the DRB to voice them unrelated to the application that's before us. Normally, I would just peer out in the audience and see literally no interest in this portion of the meeting. If you have a public comment, feel free to raise your hand or indicate in the chat that you would like to make one, and I will give that a second. Eric, any hands?
I do not see any, and I don't believe we have anybody on the phone. So if anybody is calling in, the raise hand on phone would be *9, but it does not look like we have any raised hands.
All right. There'll be plenty of opportunity to make comment throughout tonight, so I'm not super worried about it. So I do want to acknowledge before we get to the primary application before us tonight that we have a new DRB member in Caitlin Hayes. Welcome, Caitlin. Doug has made the decision to step down from his many years of service on the DRB. He will continue to serve the city of Winooski ably as a member of our charter commission. And Doug is with us tonight. And, Doug, I wanted to give you the floor to make any closing comments that you wanted to, and just thank you for your many years of service. Doug was the chair when I came on board the DRB, and it was certainly a wonder to behold all of the many years of experience he brought to the position. And I hope I speak for everyone when we say we're very appreciative of all you've brought to the board. And you're muted in case you want to say something. So still muted. I think you and Eric probably both. There you go.
So can you hear me?
Yep, you're good, Doug.
Okay. So what I would say is that I don't think I brought a lot of wisdom to the DRB when I joined. I had never served on a commission like that before. I did have some experience with land use planning in a arid land kind of environment, chasing goats and sheep and camels around North African landscapes. But that doesn't translate easy to American urban areas. So for me, it was a glorious experience, a chance to apply general principles to a new environment. I met some really wonderful people. In fact, most of the people I met, I think, have really been good and helpful. They're just a tiny, tiny number that I hope never to see again in my life. But that doesn't comprise any of the people that are on the screen today, or people that, like Harland, who aren't there. I think it's a great group with a great responsibility, and I hope this group can stay together for a considerable period of time. I think you have a lot to offer. I think you're all thoughtful and careful, and you stay both within the code and also see beyond it to how the actions that the DRB takes have an effect on the larger community. And I think that's an incredibly important responsibility for a group like this to exercise. So I thank you for all your help while I was the chair, and for all your help in steering me through the meetings. I don't know what I would have done many times without Kevin or Aaron or Harlan prompting me from the sidelines, saying, hey, Doug, you forgot to do this, or you need to do that. I'm sorry to go, but I think youth must be served, and I think it's a great group. I hope you'll, as I said, stay together and work away at this. So I'm done, and happily so. Thank you for a chance.
Excellent, and please, feel free to stop on by and make public comment as you as you wish and participate in future applications to the extent you're interested in them. And we'll see you around with the charter stuff. I'm sure we'll see your name on Front Porch Forum all the time.
I'm very interested in the work of the committee, and I may show up at odd moments just to see how things are going.
Great. So with that, so I've kind of introduced Caitlin as our newest member because we're not in person to really do this in a usual way. My suggestion might be that we go around the existing members of the DRB and just kind of do a little intro and end with Caitlin as our newest member and just, say hello. So I will kick it off and then probably call on somebody and then they can just go from there. So I'm Kevin Lumpkin. I'm very recently been installed as the chair of the DRB, still kind of learning the ropes of this position, but I've been on the board for a couple of years. I live down in the Millyard condos on West Canal Street, and I'm the designated lawyer on the DRB, but now we have two, so I can take a break from the lawyering. Love being on the DRB. David, you go next. You're the next one on my little screen.
Hi, I'm David Weisberger. I have been on the DRB for maybe 2 years, I guess. I just got reappointed. I live on Shepherd Street on the west side of town with my wife and 2 children. And I am on the path to becoming an architect.
Now you call on somebody.
Let's go with Matt. Matt's directly below me.
All right. Hi, I'm Matt Basowitz. My wife and I live the corner of LaFountain in Maine, and been here for 3 years, been in Winooski for the better part of the last 10, 15 years, and I've been on the DRB. This is my second year, almost going on my third year serving on this board, and I'm very happy to be here. We'll move to Elsie.
Hi, I'm Elsie Goodrich. I've been on the board for 4 or 5 months now, pretty much all remotely. I live on Main Street, and I'm moving to Maple Street actually in a few weeks, so that'll be changing. But welcome to the board. And I will call on Aaron.
I think Aaron is next.
Yep, Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Guyette, and I live on Gamlin Court, kind of right behind the high school area. And I've been in Winooski for, I guess, a little over 10 years now, and on DRB for a couple of years, and I'm a civil engineer. I think that's it for everyone. So I'll pass it to you, Caitlin.
Great, thank you. It's nice to virtually meet everyone. Caitlin Hayes, I live with my partner on St. Peter Street. We've been here for just coming on to a year now. I grew up in the Burlington area, in Burlington actually, and then moved away for a while, and I've been back in the state for just about 3.5 years now. And I work for the Agency of Agriculture. I work in the Water Quality Division currently, and I'm really excited to be on the DRB, and thank you all for having me.
Great. And I saw a question from Suzanne pop up about the membership. So we are a 7-member body. 5 of us are regularly constituted members. 2 of us are alternates. In practice, we kind of all show up and all participate in everything except the voting, which is maxed out at 5 per the constitution of our body. So right now there are 6 of us attending. Harland could not make it today because he just had a baby. So congratulations to Harland. So we've got a procedure for figuring out. Oh, excellent. Suzanne said you just also had a baby. Excellent. So something's going around. We've got a procedure to figure out who actually votes at the end of this. That happens in deliberative session, but everyone participates, listens to testimony, asks questions, and participates in the board discussion leading up to the vote as well.
So quick, before we move on, Doug, thank you very much for your time on the DRB. Really appreciate all the work that you put in. But unfortunately, I'm going to be demoting you back to the attendees side of the
gallery.
And can I say just one thing as I go?
Okay? Go for it.
When Harlan comes back, ask him about our first meeting together and how that meeting unfolded. And you will understand, I think, why I'm going to say I don't intend to hear the major part of the meeting repeated for the third time, but rather I intend to leave and have supper with my wife, which I didn't have on the first meeting, which lasted about 3.5 hours when we were supposed to go out for supper at 8 o'clock. So
all right.
It was not a happy event, but this is going to be a happy one, even though we're not going out. So good luck and have.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you,
Take
Doug.
care.
Oh, there we go. Wait. Yeah, we lost Kevin. Oh, hang on. Let me bring him back. I'm not sure what happened there, but we lost Kevin and Doug at the same time. Sorry,
okay.
I don't know what happened, but
you're all good. So we are moving on in the agenda to our principal agenda item here, which is a public hearing on a conditional use request for 9 George Street. So
sorry,
just want to go.
Sorry, we had the minutes next on the agenda. I don't know if you wanted to do those now or later.
Yes, sorry. Approve previous meeting minutes. Sorry about that. That is our next agenda item. They are posted on the website. Some of us may have reviewed them. Any discussion on the minutes? I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. You need to unmute yourself to move.
I second.
Okay, I didn't catch who made the motion, but somebody must.
Sorry, Elsie seconds.
Yeah, I didn't hear who made the motion. Oh,
I'll make the motion.
Must have been Matt, Elsie, got it. All in favor? Aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries. Minutes are approved from the last meeting. So now we're going to move on to the conditional use application for 9 George Street. So just a couple of things that I want to put out there at the beginning to kind of set the stage. So we are using a different kind of Zoom meeting today, as most of you have probably already figured out. We are in seminar mode. Is that what it's called?
Webinar.
Webinar. We're in webinar mode, which means that the DRB members and staff and Town Meeting TV have all been designated as presenters, which is why we are the Brady Bunch that's currently occupying everyone's screen, if you're looking at the screen. So as folks participate, the virtual equivalent of coming up to the table in our meeting room at City Hall is going to be that Eric will promote you as a participant. You'll be kind of sitting with the Brady Bunch and be able to share your screen and all that good stuff while you're presenting. And then you will virtually sit down. Someone else will come up and we'll go from there. Eric has a list of all of the folks who have expressed interest in saying something. So we are going to just follow that list, starting with the applicant and folks speaking in favor of the application, and then moving on to adjoining property owners who have expressed interest. If you change your mind, either not having previously wanted to speak, but now you feel compelled, or the opposite, just let us know in the chat function, which if you're using the web app should be right at the bottom, just a little chat bubble there. So hopefully that will all work. Anyone who's speaking, please, before you start giving testimony, just indicate that you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. I will try to remind you if you forget to do that. The last thing I wanted to bring up for this, 2 more things actually. I understand from staff that Caitlin, you had a potential conflict or something that you maybe wanted to raise, or did that work itself out?
Yeah, in reading through the articles of the procedure of the DRB, I don't think it is a conflict. I just this is my first meeting, and I do know Journey and Greg. Not that I would have any personal or financial gains from whether this conditional use permit was approved or denied, but I just wasn't sure, so I reached out to Eric just to be transparent.
Okay. And your review of the conflict of interest policies has suggested to you that the nature of your relationship is not one that rises to the level of a conflict?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody want to talk about that? Any other board members have any concerns? Cool. Okay, so last point, because this is a somewhat unusual application in that an application for a conditional use on this property has come before us twice previously. We did reach out to the city's attorney. My fault that we did it late. I raised this issue like literally yesterday afternoon with staff, and I'm very appreciative of them running down this issue. But the question that I essentially had was, are there any legal principles that we should keep in mind, given that this application has come before us a couple of times before? We did get a memo from the city's lawyer that I believe has been distributed to all of the participants as well as all of the board members. My kind of unofficial summary and understanding is that what's called the successive application doctrine generally says that for a board like this one to consider an application to do the same thing, there needs to be a substantial change from the last time it came before us. And that can be either in the real world circumstances. So, things that happen in the world, the entire rest of the street burned down, property values have doubled, or it can be in what's actually presented to us in the application. So the application is substantially different. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to review that memo. We likely won't discuss it in great detail until we're in deliberative session, but it is a good kind of guidepost for everyone who's participating that, at least in my view, what we are most likely to focus on when we do deliberate is things that are different now, that both were not presented to us previously and could not have been presented to us previously, because the application was different or the circumstances were different. So that's just kind of a word of suggested direction for where the testimony should go. But it's the applicant's presentation, and I just want everyone to be mindful of that, because one of the principles of this doctrine is that it's not all that fair to other adjoining property owners to make the same request multiple times in a row and basically just keep improving your evidence each time. So just keep that in mind. Anybody else want to ask questions of Eric or I guess either of the lawyers on the board about that, or any discussion before we kick off testimony? Seeing no interest. Maybe David has interest.
Are you saying that we should only hear new information at this hearing?
So I think there's a difference between, I would not be in favor of preventing anyone from saying something. It's more of my interpretation of the legal doctrine. And I'm kind of announcing, my interpretation of it, which is that if it's something we've already heard or some enhanced version of something we've already heard, it is, in my view, likely to be barred by this doctrine. And so it may serve folks better to be focusing on things that were not before us previously, but not my application. Not going to constrain anybody from saying something. That's just, my view of how this doctrine has been written and advised to us by our attorney. And just a word of caution.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other discussion about that? Great. So with that, I think we are ready for the applicant to make a presentation. I am going to go off of video at some point during this because I did not arrange my dinner appropriately time-wise. And I have a very delicious sandwich from Kismayo Kitchen in front of me that I would really like to eat, but it's not like the best visual. So I'm probably going to drop off of video at some point, but I promise I'm still listening and watching.
So, so I'm going to bring up Suzanne Blaine here. The one thing I would just amend to what you said, Kevin, is that I will be sharing my screen. So I have all the materials and I'll just share on behalf of everybody. So Suzanne, I'm going to promote you up to a panelist. I have 2 of you on here, so I'm hoping I chose the right one. And we will see. Okay. So, all right.
Hi, Eric. Can you actually switch to the other one? My husband Greg is on.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let me get rid of that one first, and then I think it's going to be this one. Let's see if that works.
All right, great. I haven't seen an option for, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Video?
Yeah, there you're coming in. There you are.
Okay. All right. I did have a question that went unanswered in the chat, and that was, did we have a finding on the conditional use from last time, the permit?
Yes, those findings.
It's not posted online.
Okay, it should be. I will double check on that. You should also receive it via certified mail, but I'll double check to make sure it's posted on the website.
Sorry, I should say I couldn't find it. Not that it's not posted. It might be somewhere that I can't find it.
Okay.
I also have talked to Eric about this, but I am 2 weeks postpartum, so I have a bit of a mood disorder. So if I'm talking too fast, just let me know. Or if I'm like repeating myself, I've prepared a statement, but I'm very nervous and I have a lot going on hormonally. So I apologize if any of that comes through to you guys. So regarding the successive application doctrine, we took the board's advice and we've made a substantial redesign of the elements they took issue with and the exact deficiencies laid out by the board. We substantially redesigned the parking with 2 extra spots and substantially redesigned the building by taking out a dormer and redesigning the interior. Our substantial redesign will have 2 fewer cars parking on the street by providing additional parking on the premises. The removal of a planned dormer provides more privacy and reduces the size of the building to fit in better with the character of the neighborhood. We've made substantial changes to address what the board found wrong with our proposal the last time. In addition to our substantial redesign, we went above and beyond to provide the board with all it needs to make a reasonable and fact-based opinion. We have provided information for the DRB to evaluate our proposal as it fits into the character of the neighborhood, other DRB traffic rulings, the city's master plan, and the proposal's relationship to zoning in nearby municipalities. A little bit about me. Before I owned property, I rented in the Burlington area for 10 years. I experienced what renters get and don't get in this area. I've always lived with roommates and parked with at least 3 cars back to back in any driveways we were offered. It always worked, we always managed, and it wasn't an issue. At age 30, I set out to rent a 1-bedroom and found it was impossible, being either unaffordable or substandard. When I felt ready to purchase my first home as a single person and teacher, I couldn't qualify for most homes. Luckily, I found something I could qualify for, although it stretched my budget. I bought 160 St. Peter Street. It reeked of cigarette smoke and ferrets, and there were heroin needles around the property. After I got to fixing it up, I found the foundation was crumbling, and a weight-bearing wall had been cut out of the center of the house, resulting in a considerable sag. The upstairs heat didn't work well. The bottom apartment was grandfathered in as a rental, although it was very unsafe. It had only a 6'4" height ceiling and was very dangerous if there was a fire. I couldn't in good conscience rent this apartment out until we addressed the fire and safety concerns. After 9 months of work, every piece of the building now meets code. Greg and I moved in together at his house to save money for this project. We rented out the other bedrooms in his house and rolled up our sleeves, and we've been rolling up our sleeves ever since. Why didn't we move into George Street? With good credit and sacrifices like living with roommates, we were able to save and buy George Street. The neighbors on the street are sweet, kind, neighborly people. We were originally going to move into this house, but I lost 20% of my job in 2018. As is typical for art teachers in our state, we are the first cut. When my job got cut, we simultaneously realized we were struggling with infertility, which is an uninsured medical condition in Vermont. We couldn't afford to move into George Street and rented it out. Investments at George Street. Our goal on George Street is now to provide safe and affordable housing. To date, we've only had positive relationships with tenants and neighbors and are passionate about offering beautiful, well-priced rentals. We fully intend to keep this trend going. We've made it beautiful both inside and out. We've updated the unsafe electric and water systems and hardwired smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. We put brand new windows into the entire house for efficiency, egress, and function, and repainted it top to bottom. We gave it a new roof, re-insulated everywhere, and topped it off with French siding and put in new flooring. It has a new bathroom in the added dormer upstairs, and we gutted the bathroom downstairs to update it. Luckily, we got the property inspected, which actually took 6 months of pestering the city to achieve. This was so important because Erica helped us discover leaking carbon monoxide. We immediately replaced the furnace, and once we were doing that, added a central air conditioning system. We would dream to have central air, especially during this June's heat wave when I was 9 months pregnant. We treat our tenants royally, even putting in deep soak tubs in every unit. Luckily, we can do these improvements because my husband works for free. Over the past 10 years of his living in Winooski, he's averaged about 1,200 hours per year of labor on Winooski properties, including freely helping neighbors and friends. Why a studio? Greg built a barn studio apartment at West Street and the studio apartment at 160 St. Peter Street. They typically rent within 1 or 2 showings because they are beautiful and we keep the rent reasonable, making them a great value. As one of my tenants will testify later, the privacy of a cottage is very desirable. Nice, affordable one-bedrooms are hard to come by because they don't make money for landlords, and many people are changing them to Airbnbs to make more money. We are not interested in that, and we like renting to just one person or a couple. As a contractor once told me, landlords make money off bedrooms. We could, within our rights, put in a 4-bedroom, 3-story house attached to the main house, making a duplex at 9 George Street. A duplex would not need to go through the DRB process like we've been doing. It's just a zoning approval. I recognize many of our neighbors have lived on the street for 40 to 60 years, and I recognize change is hard. Other city meetings show the Planning and Housing Commissions of Winooski are very intentional when they designate each district. We hope to help our city realize its goals. We as a city are putting in a ton of money into the Main Street Revitalization Project, and this new little college will dovetail with that plan as walkable to the Main Street corridor. Renewable energy, referring to item 5 of the CU memo assessment of renewable energy. Although it is not in this proposal, we have designed the southern roof of the cottage for solar panels with a 45-degree angle. We've talked to SunCommon and we will be able to install solar panels with the state required 3-foot setback. We're just not putting that in the proposal now, it's for the future. Above and beyond, we're trying our best to go above and beyond zoning regulations, which we did meet during our last DRB meeting, and trying to create something that will please both the DRB and the neighbors. We went back to the drawing board, literally, with both the architectural and engineering plans. How is this building different from the last proposal? We substantially redesigned the entire cottage to offer the most privacy possible to Randy on one side and Claire and Doug on the other side. We took out a dormer from the original plan to give extra privacy, which also took out the bathroom and the 1-bedroom aspect, and took out a window on the street side of the building. Due to the stairs that we put in to be fire safe instead of doing code spiral staircase or ladder. And the half of the loft space that is now has not enough head height, about a quarter of the 20 by 24 space is unusable as living space. Taking out the dormer meant we changed from a one bedroom to an open loft concept upstairs. And we had to take out the upstairs closets and half bath we'd originally proposed. Randy in the last meeting said he didn't want someone looking in his windows. In the new design, we took out the dormer with the front-facing windows. We also changed from 4 windows to 3, and these windows on that side are high and small up, so they're more for light than for viewing. We moved the kitchen, where people spend most of their time, to the back of the building and on the other side, which makes the plumbing runs more difficult and expensive. We now have only 2 windows on Randy's side. One is in a bathroom, so it will be covered by curtains. On Randy's side, the upstairs window is in the staircase, so it's unlikely it will be used for more than a light source. On Doug and Claire's side, there are also now only 2 windows, one in a bedroom, so curtained most of the time, and one in the kitchen, which will be behind the cars, and potentially, if they want it, the 6-foot fence. The door also only has a transom light for increased privacy and only to add light for our tenants, not viewing. We are still willing to fence in the whole property with a 6-foot fence and or a vegetative screen. Who might live here? There have been no issues of nuisance complaints at any of our properties, specifically the current 9 George Street tenants. The tenants we have had in our studio apartments over the years have been contributing members of the community and deserve quality, affordable housing. We have rented the studio spaces to a resident doctor, a computer programmer, a water quality expert, to wait staff, a digital media expert, a paralegal, an EMT, a nursing student, to teachers, a carpenter, a Navy recruiter, and an environmental lawyer. Let's talk parking. As I said in my PowerPoint slide presentation, the school surveyed the street and said there's plenty of parking. Whenever we go to the street, there is plenty of parking. The street usually has at least 10 spots open on one side and almost the entire other side open. Usually there's only 2 cars on that side. I do agree that it should be a one-sided street because it is very narrow. Even if there is no street parking, we now have 5 spots on the premises, which will become 7 spots if encroachment is allowed, which I'll discuss later. The DRB allowed an extra 35 parking spaces at the school, which could easily be shared with this little neighborhood. Similar to the way City Lights said their parking works, my tenants will most likely be gone in the daytime when the school uses their lot, and they would most likely have guests in the evening and weekends who could use the school parking lot if needed. Above and beyond accommodating the neighbors, I've asked my tenants to only park in our driveway or in front of our house. They have guests park evenings and weekends at the school lot. The neighbors on the street aren't lacking or needing parking. They all tend to have large driveways around us with plenty of parking on the street. When they complain about people parking on the street and using the public domain, they're complaining that perhaps someone is parking in front of their house. As you can see in the pictures we've provided, the street is typically fairly empty for a city street. How do we address impact on traffic in this new plan? We did meet zoning requirements in our last meeting, but the DRB found our cottage with 1 car will impact traffic, although that 1 car has its own independent parking spot. We request that the DRB permit the driveway to encroach into the side yard setback to the extent necessary in order to safely accommodate 2 vehicles side by side. Although we don't need this to accommodate our 5 parking spots, we do feel like it would be easier for tenants to get in and would actually make 2 extra spots. If the DRB approves our encroachment waiver request, we will get an extra 2 off-street parking spots added to our current 5, making a grand total of 7 potential spots. Typically, you need 18 feet across to park 2 cars next to each other and be able to open the doors. From the house to the eastern edge of the new driveway, the engineered planned driveway, it's 15.5 feet with a 4-foot setback. If we are allowed at least an extra 2.5 feet of an encroachment, we would gain another 2 parking spots that would allow the doors to open and make passing easier. additionally making passing easier. As I mentioned in the slideshow, an encroachment fits with the character of the neighborhood because about 57% of the houses on the street have a 0-foot setback from the property line. We wanted to show in our engineered parking plan that we can still put in a driveway that has the 4-foot setback, but we would like to be granted encroachment for ease of access and to offer those 2 more side-by-side parking spots, potentially for guests. Granting the encroachment would further ease our neighbors' street parking concerns. I will also like to submit this statement in the record. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions and continue to work with the DRB.
Suzanne, is there any of the materials that you wanted me to show to anybody? I can share my screen with either your PowerPoint presentation or your site plans or any of that information if you want to go through any of that.
By a show of hands, who has not seen the PowerPoint presentation on the DRB? Okay, so I don't feel like I need to call that out. And we can refer to it if there are questions where I feel like it's applicable. I think it kind of speaks for itself. That was the intent. The other thing was that I did have that folder of photos. Has anybody not seen the folder of photos? By show of hands. Okay. So I guess the main thing about the photos that was not verbally said, or I didn't write out about the photos, but I just wanted to show the improvements to the properties that we do own. So the improvements we've done already at George Street, the improvements at 160 interior and exterior, and that we're making really nice quality rentals, and we rent everything under market rate.
I had a couple of questions about just trying to recall what we saw in the April meeting, which was our first virtual meeting, and it was one of the longest in DRB history for anyone who has trouble remembering.
Not my fault. There was 3 other things
that was the school, and that was a lot in one night.
Okay.
So I don't recall seeing any detailed discussion of how the interior of the cottage would be designed. And I look back at the materials. I think the last time we just saw, the footprint 24 by 20, and maybe there was some discussion, but I don't remember seeing fully developed plans. Am I misremembering that?
We didn't present them at the meeting. They were submitted, I believe. I think they're online still. Eric, is that true?
Yes, there were plans that were submitted similar. I believe the applicant had drawn them up similar to the plans that were included with this application. They are, but there was a plan set that was included with the previous application as well.
Okay. So I'm just focusing in on I think I heard in broad strokes, the 2 things that you're telling us you substantially redesigned were, the cottage itself, moving things around, dropping that dormer, taking into account neighbor discussions from the last meeting, and changing the parking configuration. So you've got more kind of side-by-side parking. Are those the 2 kind of big things that you think have changed from the last time you were here?
Yes, I think the exterior changes to accommodate privacy and character of the neighborhood. We didn't really understand what that meant. It wasn't clarified on the document that you gave us. So we were just sort of guessing at what you wanted. For character of the neighborhood. So that's why we redesigned the cottage. We basically just heard what the neighbors were saying about privacy and things like that. And so that's why we changed the entire project. And then, yes, we heard what you said about this impacting the street traffic. Our assumption was that you were worried we were relying too heavily on street parking. You also did not give any detail to what impact on traffic we were having. We couldn't imagine 1 car or 2 cars driving down the road impacting traffic, especially when you had also approved 35 cars every day for school. So we assumed you meant the parking. And so that's why we redesigned we had our engineers redesign the parking. So now we have a variety of ways you can use the parking. Would you like me to speak to that, Kevin?
Sure. If you can kind of walk us through, there was some discussion the last time about whether it, as a practical matter, the back-to-back, end-to-end parking would work, would be utilized, and I remember a fair bit of back and forth about who would park where and how it would work.
Well, we did in the meeting. I don't know if this happened in your discussion, but in the meeting, we told you the designated parking spot for the, well, I don't know if we need to go back to it, but we told you the designated parking spot for the cottage was the one by the road, which was independent. And then our tenants have actually been parking 2 to 3 cars and their motorcycle in our driveway. So I think they've already demonstrated pretty clearly that they're happy to do the not happy, but that they can easily do the back-to-back parking. They just leave their keys by the door, and then, who's ever around either moves them or moves the cars, or, you can just grab someone's key, move the car out, move your car out, and then move the car back in. So as I said, I lived for 10 years with this style of back-to-back parking. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, so that does help refresh my recollection of what we talked about the last time. This time around, it looks like we've got this kind of jut out from the existing structure that makes it impossible to do 2 lanes kind of all the way back. But it looks like you've got a double lane system, and then it goes down to 1 lane for a little bit, and then it goes back.
Eric, are you able to pull up the driveway plans, and we can just sort of look through them as a crew?
Yeah, I would just appreciate, that same explanation from last time, except how it's going to work under this plan.
Sure. So I think one of the things that we felt was important, there were a lot of questions last time about who is living here, what are we going to require them to only have 1 car? Our goal is to find someone with 1 car. As the City Lights group testified, they actually only plan for 0.7 cars per unit like this. So, I mean, the person who lives here could be a teacher, and they just sell their car and just walk to school and walk to Shaw's. So that's a possibility, but obviously we want to provide off-street parking. So say, for example, we love tenants and they have to have 2 cars for work or something like that. But we really, really want to have them. So if that were the case, we would designate this street car by the street would be for the cottage. And then the car on the left at the top would be for the cottage. And then we would have 2 off-street spots. Thanks, Eric. The 2 off-street spots would be the ones required for the main house. Most likely and hopefully we'll only have somebody who has 1 car. That's our preference, and that's what we'll be looking for in applications from tenants. In that case, if needed, I mean, we still have a ton of public parking on the street. It's public domain. But if needed, let's say the city decides we're doing a bike lane, we want a lot of safety for the children, we're having no parking. In that case, if there's 4 people, say, living in the main house like there is now, and say they have 4 cars, right now they have 3 cars and a motorcycle, but let's say they have 4 cars, then we can fit, and Eric can show you on the next slide, they could potentially, if they had to, fit another car in. We are requesting from the DRB, I wrote it down, but I think it's a 2.5 foot setback. So if you look, so let's just talk about the 5 cars. Obviously, this is a lot more difficult to park because this car would always have to move, but it would actually be easier because say you have someone who works in town or they work at that City Lights building at the cafe, they just leave their car in the front and they only go hiking on the weekends. Or they take the bus to the hospital. It's right on the bus line. So they just leave their car in the back, and then you have 2 independent spots and just 1 person blocking each time. So the idea of this parking plan, I mean, if the DRB wants, we could add another spot in front of the one on the left. We can we can utilize this without going over our lot coverage. We are requesting that, so right here, down by the street, it's 8 feet is a parking spot for parallel parking. 9 feet by 18 is a typical parking spot. So if you put 2 side-by-side sedans there, like a typical driveway has to be about 18 feet for cars to park next to each other. So this is currently 15.5 feet to have the 4-foot setback. If you approve it, we can actually fit 2 more cars there because they can actually fit side by side. So let's say they had a party, the street was full, it's one-sided parking, they've put the bike lanes in, then, you know, those 2 extra cars won't be on the street, or, you know, like they can park them on this lot if needed. Does that answer your questions, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that was a very helpful walkthrough. I don't want to monopolize the question time, so other folks go for it. Unmute.
You know, it's so nice to not have masks on and talk to each other. I'm like, oh, look, we could see, like, I can see your facial expression. Yeah, David?
Eric, could you go back up to the one that actually shows the proposed footprint?
Mhm.
Suzanne, can you walk me through the orientation of the building? It wasn't quite clear to me from those elevations. Is the entry in that empty space beside the furthest car?
Yes.
So to get to that, people will have to thread their way, if all those cars are there, through the cars?
Correct. I mean, I think this car could back up 4 feet, and so you could get there, but yeah.
And so the ridge, the gable is on that side, and the ridge runs.
So the south, I believe, is the street, and so this is this side. If you can just bring your mouse down, Eric, and move it side to side, this is where the the solar panels could be. So that's the pitched roof. And then the other side on the baseball field is going to be the dormer. So
Okay.
that's like where the bedroom's going to be, and it won't face anybody.
Got it. And then my other question is, do those figures for the lot coverage on the previous page, do they include the driveway?
The ones on this one do. On the next page, Eric and I discovered we're like confused by them. But the next page with the 5 cars, they didn't put in the accessory structure. So that's why it says like 36%. It's just if there was. It would be 36% if there's not. Yeah, so.
We can rotate the building if need be.
Yeah, we can rotate the building, but we were really striving for privacy. So that's why we wanted, and also the solar panels. So that's why we went with that direction.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a quick question on the sketch plans of the building itself, not the site plan.
Yeah.
To the right side of the kitchen, if you go down to the floor plan of the kitchen, there appears to be a staircase going down. First of all, I don't see a spot for utilities. Is it safe to assume that there is a basement here? Are those stairs leading to a basement?
We're doing a crawl space basement.
Okay.
Probably. We had originally designed it for a slab, but then once we got into it with some friends who do architecture, we were thinking it would probably be easier to put everything in the basement. Yeah.
Okay.
Greg, actually, do you want to speak to that at all?
What's that?
Do you want to speak to the crawl space?
It would be a 5-foot crawl space.
It would be a 5-foot crawl space. So
Slab.
a little, well, we're getting rid of the shed, which we weren't originally going to do because we had less parking for lot coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So we do try to provide extra storage for our tenants. Eric, are Ben, sorry, before I get too far into these questions, are Ben and Sam on the call?
Yes, they are both on the call.
Okay, would it be appropriate to call them as part of my testimony now?
I can bring them up for sure.
Okay, so
Sorry, I might actually. It's at least my preference to make sure everyone's asked you all the questions that they have, and then hear from other witnesses.
okay.
Just so we don't keep going back and forth and calling them,
Sure.
calling you.
Sure. Sorry, I sort of like got into questions and I forgot that they're part of my testimony. So I just appreciate if we do that before the public comments.
Sure. I think the order is going to be that the folks who are speaking in favor of the application generally go first, and then the folks who are adjoiners who have other comments go second, and that's generally how it's going.
Thank you.
Just a quick related question for Eric. So that crawl space doesn't count against the floor space of the detached cottage because it's not habitable? Is it just it's not habitable?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It would be, it's the definition of the detached cottage is 1,000 gross square feet of habitable floor area. So because it's not habitable, that would not count against that.
Any other questions from any DRB members for our applicants? All right, so I'm hearing none. I'm not seeing anybody frantically waving. Oh,
okay. Is anyone frantically waving? I did have a response to the main petition. I'm not sure if now is the appropriate time to talk about that.
So what do you mean by main petition?
So the neighbors in the documents that Eric sent had a petition that had a lot of questions that I'm happy to address. Would now be the appropriate time to address those, or should I address them before public comment?
Sure. So if you have things that you think are helpful for us to hear that are kind of anticipating the concerns you've heard from neighbors and responding to them, I think it would be helpful to present those now. We'll likely hear from those neighbors later on. And so, we're not going to make you perfectly guess what they're going to say. Often we invite applicants, if they have responses to things that we haven't heard about, to come back at the very end and at least answer the questions. But it's not unusual to do it now.
Okay, well, I think now would be a great time. So I just went, they had a lot of different statements and questions. And so I just went through and responded as best I could. Also, I think I forgot to swear myself in, but everything I've said is the truth, the whole truth, and all that, I swear. But so let me just go over those quickly. So this is responses to neighbor petitions and questions. So people seemed to think that I was saying they did something wrong on their lots, and I wanted to clarify that was not my intention. I created the PowerPoint with the assumption that everything on the street was grandfathered in or approved for variance. I was not saying anyone did anything wrong, merely saying that we have created our proposal according to the zoning rules that have not been applied to the other properties on the street. A question I do have, and maybe we'll clarify this further in this meeting, regarding the letter from George and Betty Perrott, is they were talking a lot about the character of the neighborhood being single family homes. And so I guess my question in general is the character of single family homes in the RB district what the DRB meant by not meeting character? Does this accomplish the fair housing goals of Winooski and Vermont would be my question. And we can talk about that maybe later in the meeting. This neighborhood is designed for this proposed level of density. The neighbors in the petition said that we should have only more than a single family home in the corridors. And the corridors are designed actually for a much higher level of density. So this is the density that is appropriate for this neighborhood as per the housing and zone and planning commissions. On page 2, they had questions about the cars parking side by side. The cars will not park side by side unless there is a 9-foot width per spot, and that side by side hinges on the DRB approval. They asked that the stairs are bigger than what was in the engineered design, and the stairs do increase the lot coverage by 0.6%, but we're still under the lot coverage of 50%. We left ourselves some wiggle room just in case for something like that. The steps were estimated by our engineer, which was a verifying field, and we needed them to be bigger than he predicted because we needed to meet the code of the landing, and that is being the width and the depth of the door. They had questions about snow removal. We leave plowing and shoveling to tenants because we've found that we can't work around their cars. So for us to shovel, we have to go and like get them to move their cars, and we're working. And we can't coordinate that with our plowing company. So we leave the plowing and shoveling to tenants. We can, however, put in a condition into the lease that snow must be removed if that is a very major concern. There was a lot of comments about people backing into cars. Our tenants have not backed into any cars. There was a question about pavers. The engineer put pavers in the drawings in the last proposal without our request. We don't want pavers, and that's why they're not in this proposal. On page 3, how is this proposal different? I already addressed this, but we've added 2 more parking spots, perhaps even 4. One of them is an independent spot to address the impact on traffic. We've changed the design of the building to add privacy for the neighbors, and we've addressed character of the neighborhood in our presentation. Why another proposal? We did not want to appeal the DRB decision the last time until we had put in a good faith effort to accommodate everyone's preferences for this project. Also, we were surprised by the character of the neighborhood ruling and felt that it needed to be addressed by us before the appeal. There was a lot of comments like this is single family, this is single family. There are at least 3 multifamily uses of lots on this street. So one of those was a lot that had previously most likely been divided. And then there's the cottage at 14A, and then the multifamily at the end of the street. They thought that we were saying that the street was ugly, but we were going to save them, and this was not our intention. We love the street and its residents. I don't think predominantly single-family homes, as I said, should be considered character of the neighborhood. If so, then this would concentrate 2-family homes into other areas that are RB zoned. And this would concentrate economic and social diversity into other areas. Also, multifamily housing is an aspect of fair housing and important for integration. There was a concern about emergency services. This has come up at every meeting. Also, it feels surprising that this seems like such a big deal at these DRB meetings. It's been a year since we've been proposing this, and no one has done anything about the 2-sided street parking. It should be noted that recently someone needed an ambulance on the street, and the ambulance was able to get to that person in their house. I do agree this should be a 1-sided parking street. Perhaps even you could have residents only, because it seems like the school is using the street, because when we've been there this entire spring redoing the outside of the house, there has been almost no cars on the street. It's like 1 or 2 from our house, and then there's just a few sprinkled around. So there's obviously people who aren't living here who are parking here during the school year. If the bike path, there was an issue with the bike path being put in. If the bike path is put in, well, the 1-sided street parking will happen anyway, but I don't know the timeline for this improvement of the city. I couldn't find it online in the time since I got this question. Also, we have been discussing this. I checked about that. I'm happy to work on getting the street changed to 1-sided parking if the neighbors want me to, but I've been concentrating on my main work as a teacher and also on redesigning this proposal and also growing a child. Concern for my current renters' voice, they were concerned that my renters didn't want this project or were not feeling like they had privacy. The current renters want to have actually one of them move into the cottage, and we've offered them a steeply discounted rate if they do, because they're so wonderful and we know what we're getting with them, which is great tenants. We've also proposed adding 6-foot fencing around the entire property and also changed the layout, like I said. There was a question, why am I discussing Burlington's encouragement of ADUs and their work to make it easier in their zoning laws? I'm suggesting that Winooski follows suit in encouraging small-scale infill by streamlining this process. When City Lights discussed their parking and the school discussed their parking, they referred to nearby municipalities and their practices. I am merely following that format. This is not my profession. I'm an art teacher. I'm just mimicking what I've seen professionals do when giving their presentations to the DRB, and they referred to other municipalities' practices. So that's what I was doing with that. There's a question, will we put in a new electric pole? No, we are using the existing electric. We actually raised the power lines when we redid the siding this spring to bring it up to code. The power lines attached to the house were originally around 8 feet, and now they're near the peak of the roof, which is up to code. We've prepared the site to have an extra meter at this spot. And when we put in the sewer and water, when we tear out the driveway and put in the sewer and water, we'll bury the power lines to the back cottage. There was a question, and Eric might want to address this at some point, the difference between an ADU and a conditional use project. An ADU, my understanding, is the right by Vermont State on every single family property. It has conditions, like size conditions, like it has to be 30% of the main house, and each municipality can add conditions like going through DRB or having parking requirements. Also in an ADU, you have to live in one of the houses, one of the units, to have the ADU. A cottage is a conditional use permit. This does not have a size limit necessarily, other than the lot coverage and setbacks, like the regular zoning rules, and that's what we're applying for. There was a question, and I actually made a mistake in my presentation about this, about like driveway and then runoff versus groundwater versus runoff. So first of all, I was mistaken. The gravel driveway is considered impervious by Vermont State because it's compacted. We were entertaining like the waffled driveway, so we were hoping to put that in, but our engineer advised against it because it actually doesn't hold up very well in the Vermont winters. So we were really hoping for that, but we're going to probably go with the gravel. But anyway, like what's better, more runoff or more groundwater? And this is not a question I can answer very well. I don't know a lot about groundwater and runoff. However, we are meeting all the zoning requirements, which I assume take that into account. We make it a 2-bedroom. There's a big concern that we're just going to try to like jam as many people into this property as we can, which is not at all what we want to do. And they asked about interior pictures. So the interior pictures we did submit in our application, but I didn't put all that stuff into the slideshow just because I felt like it was redundant. But we have an open, like I said, it's an open concept loft. There's no intention to change it to a 2-bedroom. There was questions, what if the street changes to one-sided parking and they put the bike lane in? Our new parking plan allows for 4 to 5 cars. If you approve it, it could park even 7 cars. We are committed to having a cottage tenant with only 1 car. Most houses on the street don't use much parking, and I don't think it will ever be fully used by residents on the street. But the new parking plan accommodates all cars if needed. And then I also already talked about using the school lot as an option. There was a question if we're a business and we have a business license. So we could do a sole proprietor LLC, but the taxes are the same. So we just pay our taxes as individual, like as a couple. Because we have mortgages, the bank will not allow them to be taken over by an LLC or taken over by a business. We will create a business for each property if we ever pay off our mortgage, but wish us luck. In terms of taxes, it's a moot point. I don't know what a business license is otherwise. And perhaps Eric, they had a question about the RB district and the right to build a duplex. So I'm going to leave that to you to talk about. And then and then page 5 was all about the conditional use rules. And Eric did say that we've met all the conditional use rules, but I didn't go through each one and talk about it. And then I did want to comment that there are no renters from George Street, which were included in the petition that I could tell. I don't know everybody, but, and I was just wondering also if they were solicited for their opinions and if the people on the street consider renters to be valuable members of our Winooski community and the George Street community.
Okay, that was a lot. I appreciate.
Well, it was like a 7-page thing. So
no, there was just a lot of content. I admire you getting through it in like one breath. So I want to pause here and allow other folks from the DRB to ask any questions in response to kind of the comments that were reacting to the kind of unified neighbor document that we received and that was posted to the website. Seeing no unmutes or hands waving around. So my preference, I know there were a couple of questions that were better for Eric to respond to, but my preference there would be to have that part of the discussion during the presentation by the neighbors. I do want to note that someone submitted a chat during that presentation. I would suggest that if anyone who is not currently presenting wants to make a comment, they do so out loud, because the chat isn't going to be recorded by Town Meeting TV and not everyone can see it. So it's not officially part of the record. I haven't read it, I just noted it. So if you have any responses, anything to say, I would suggest that you do it when you've been promoted to a panelist. So Suzanne, anything else from you?
I do have two tenants that I wanted to speak about renting in the area and also speak to just our history as landlords and our other properties, which we intend this project to be at the same standard of and the same price range.
Yep. So I think those are next for Eric to kind of call on, and basically you'll sit down and they'll stand up one by one and speak to us individually. And I see now an additional chat from a member of the audience who is unable to unmute. So what I will do is I'll go back to that individual's comment and I will read it into the record, just so everyone knows what the written comments we are getting are. So the comment was from Betty Perrott, and the statement was, the statement of 2 cars in the street is untrue. There are currently 5 cars on the street right now. Also, this isn't normal times with COVID-19. I also see a message from Rick Langlace that says, I have no comments. You have my written statement submitted by Doug Weston. It all sounds the same proposal/argument presented before. So I don't know that you necessarily need to respond to those, but I just wanted to make those clear for the record. And I'm certain we'll hear more comments from the folks who plan to participate.
Yeah, I guess like the goal isn't to have no cars parking on a city street. I don't think that should be the goal of the city. Like, it's public domain, and I don't know. I guess that's just, I don't really understand why we're trying to have no cars on the street, or if that is the goal. And I mean, I've showed you ways that we can have no cars from our house on the street, but is that the goal of the DRB? Like, to have no use of, I don't know.
So
I guess I'm very confused as to this comment about, like, there's 5 cars on the street. There's 28 cars on my street.
Yep. So just passing along things so they're in the record.
Sure.
So I think at this point, what we should do is have the 2 additional folks who are attending the meeting, and I understand plan to present testimony, promoted to do that, and you'll kind of virtually sit down, and we may check in with you later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank
Eric,
you for your consideration. I know it seems like the same thing again, but we just want to really try to get it right the way you want it. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation. And Eric, who's next?
Yes, so I'm going to send Suzanne back to the attendees side, and then I'm going to bring up Samantha Prue here in a moment as a panelist. So,
and I forgot last time, but if you could just swear or affirm that your testimony is accurate before you give it, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So I do swear that this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't know if I need to say more than that, but hopefully that was enough. So thank you so much for letting me testify on Susan's behalf. It's really a privilege and just the least that I can do to say thank you for such a wonderful renting experience. I've written up a statement, so I'm going to read from it. So not looking directly at the camera because I'm going to read my statement. But good evening. My name is Samantha Pro, and I'm a former tenant of Suzanne Blaine's at her property at 160 St. Peter Street in Winooski. Thank you for the opportunity to advocate on Suzanne's behalf. As I said, this testimony is the least I can do to say thank you for such a wonderful tenant experience. I was a tenant at 160 St. Peter Street for 1.5 years with a few friends from St. Michael's College. As recent graduates at the time, we were unfamiliar with renting, as St. Mike's is a 4-year on-campus residential college. When we found the property on Craigslist, we were absolutely blown away and even more thrilled when we were accepted as tenants. And the property was absolutely gorgeous, well-maintained, and welcoming to all of us who had the privilege to live there. We felt lucky to have stumbled upon not only a beautiful property, but also a caring and honest landlord. Suzanne always made us feel welcome, even going so far as to put applications for voting registration in Vermont in our mailboxes, and inviting us to parties and gatherings at their home just down the street. And this attitude really helped us feel like valued members of the Winooski community, and it's something that I'll never forget. And during my time living at the property at St. Peter Street, I was also working as an AmeriCorps Vista for the Committee on Temporary Shelter, COTS, if you're familiar with COTS in Burlington. And VISTA stands for Volunteers in Service to America. It is a volunteer position for 1 year. And they provide little in the way of monetary compensation. And we were provided a very small housing stipend to cover rent, utilities, food costs, etc. And I felt extremely lucky to have been a tenant with Suzanne because the home was reasonably priced with amazing value. We all enjoyed, some beautiful appliances, a washer and dryer, a shed for bike storage, and even some room to plant a garden. And I felt really lucky to have been able to live in such a beautiful place, even though I was making little money. And as Vermonters, we all know and understand the value of home. It's not only a safe place to sleep, but a place to create lasting memories with friends and families. Renters deserve the same right to experience this feeling as anyone. Suzanne, in my mind, is an expert at providing this in a multitude of ways. She's supportive, helpful, friendly, kind, and we couldn't have asked for a better experience as first-time renters. We felt lucky to be your neighbors here in Winooski and want to see the community grow. And we hope you'll extend the same welcoming hand to Suzanne and her next tenants at this new cottage. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I do feel like my perspective on working with folks experiencing homelessness gives me an extra understanding of what living in a nice, beautiful, safe home looks like. And Suzanne and Greg are absolutely experts and just wonderful, caring people who really care about providing this to their tenants, and something that should be absolutely considered in this process. So thank you so much.
Great. Any questions from members of the board? Seeing no flailing about. Thank you very much for taking the time. Unless you have anything else, we'll ask you to virtually sit down and call on the next person.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you.
Great.
All right, so I'm going to remove you. Sam, thank you for attending. Once I find you, there you are. And then the next person that I have on the list is Ben Rapson. So Ben, once I find you on the list here, I will bring you up to panelists. And Ben should be joining us shortly.
Hi there.
How's it going?
I swear that my testimony is the truth, nothing but the truth. I do not have a written statement, but rather I'm just going to communicate my story. I and my wife, Amber, were tenants at Suzanne and Greg's property at 58 West in Winooski. We are from Seattle, where I was born and raised, and we moved to Winooski on kind of a whim. We were sick of city living and how impersonal and expensive everything was. And my wife has family on the East Coast, so we decided to make a new story for ourselves. And we did a lot of research and discovered that Winooski had some really unique character to it and decided to take the leap. And we're overjoyed to find the place, the cottage at 58 West. It's a as you may know, a really beautiful studio, and it has a ton of privacy, which is really important for us because we have a very noisy dog named Taco. Taco is an early riser, as we are, and he also misses us desperately whenever we leave. So he makes a good deal of noise at different parts of the day, and it was very important to us to have a space that felt like it had privacy, even though we wanted the experience of living in a neighborhood. We quickly fell in love with Winooski, the character and the charm and the just a lot of the businesses and the landscapes. And Suzanne and Greg really personified a lot of what we still love dearly about Winooski. They were extremely hospitable. They were kind and reasonable and understanding. They provided some really awesome extra storage for us, some really great yard space. They also were very inviting to us to their Sunday night dinners, and they even hosted my birthday party where we projected a movie onto the side of the building. And they just were really great landlords to have. I, in particular, really appreciate their ability to work with our needs, and they provided just a great space that made our lifestyle possible and made us fall in love with Winooski. I still wish we were there in a lot of ways, but I got hired here in the Upper Valley. I'm in Quechee now, so we had to move after living there for a year and a half. But we love our time there. We still remain good friends with Suzanne and Greg. And I just want to put forth my confidence in them as designers of spaces, as landlords, as community members. And I hope that you'll see fit to approve what they are proposing. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thanks. Any questions from board members? Seeing a lot of shaking heads. Well, Ben, thank you very much for taking the time. We'll ask you to virtually sit down, and then I believe the next folks who want to speak are adjoining or nearby property owners who have submitted written comments, but also want to provide testimony. Is that right, Eric?
Yes, that was the last person that I had on my list for people speaking in favor of the application. So unless that has changed, if it has, please raise your hand in the participant window or indicate in the chat. Otherwise, the first person that I have on my list for to speak is Doug Weston. Once I find you here, Doug. And I believe Doug has some folks that are sitting in with him as well. So Doug, I'm going to promote you up. So it'll be Doug and potentially others.
Great. House party.
Once he gets here. Oh, let me ask him. Okay. All right, Doug, you're here. You need to unmute yourself and then.
Okay, all set.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It looks like you've got some folks appropriately distanced behind you. So if you, Doug, would just kind of identify who's with you. I don't want to make them come up to the camera or anything. But just let us know what your roster is there. And if you just want to pop in a quick I swear or affirm, then you can take it away.
All right. I swear and affirm that the testimony is true and all that stuff. I'm here with Don and Bette Charity and Marie Miller and my wife, Claire. And between us, we have 160 years together on George Street, not just in Winooski and not just in Vermont. And we're obviously opposed to the cottage. And I just want to tell, Suzanne, that, we're not questioning
the quality. Obviously, you do good quality work. I mean, we saw it today when you guys finished up the house, and whether you're a good landlord or not is out of our jurisdiction anyway, because you have a lot of other people that can talk to that. But the main thing that we have is the character of the street, and she's already gone over this. So we're primarily a small dead end, hopefully dead end street again, but we're very narrow, and we have a lot of older people, older tenants, older residents. And, you know, she's trying to bring in a densely populated rental property. Right now, there's 4 renters in one building, which, you know, isn't a major thing. But if she brings a cottage in, she can have 5 or 6 total, and 5 or 6 cars. It's just too dense for our street. And it really does change the character of the street. I don't know who, you know, if anybody can define what a character of a street is, but it's, to us, it's the families and, you know, just having a small group of people instead of people that are going to be transient more than likely. We cannot support additional density. We have, with the parking or the traffic, let's get into the traffic. We're talking, and she's already mentioned it, she's already brought it up, so it's no surprise. The school approved the parking lot at the end of George Street with no access from the school to their parking lot, which is going from 24 to 56 cars. So all these 56 cars are going to be traveling down George Street twice a day, and that doesn't count the parents that are going to be dropping off their students, and it doesn't count, you know, the students walking by. There's just a lot of traffic on this street for a small street. Now, her parking scheme, yeah, it looks good on paper, but practicality, I don't think it's going to work. 2 cars side by side, I don't see them, you know, being able to park side by side and open their car doors. And if they have a passenger, the passenger on the east side would not be able to get out of their car without probably encroaching on our property. And I know she's asked you to go ahead and let her encroach another 2.5 feet from the property line. I think this is asking a little bit much. If all the cars were parked in the, you know, 5 or 6 or 7, whatever it is that she ends up getting in there, if an ambulance had to get into that cottage, how would they do it? I mean, they wouldn't be able to get it. They'd have to move all the cars, and if they wanted to get somebody out of the cottage. Now, the other, the lot coverage thing, I already explained that. You got the document as she presented it, and, you know, she's supposed to present a complete document, I think, is not complete. So it probably should be rejected on that alone. And the other thing is, this is the 3rd time that she's brought up the same design, basically. She says she did this and did that, but realistically, the cottage is still 24 by 20. The house is still whatever it is, and the only thing that she's really changed is the depth of the driveway. So this kind of brings up that the last letter that you sent out, Eric, as far as you know, redundant applications for the same thing. I mean, she's gone over everything on my presentation anyway, so I mean, I'll yield to anybody else that might want to have, you know, have something to say, but just it's not a personal thing for them or for us to against them. It's just they're trying to really change George Street to become, extra dense with renters that are going to be in and out. She doesn't know who's going to be renting these properties 2 years from now. And if they sell the property, then what happens? Maybe the new owner isn't going to be as helpful as she's espoused herself to be. So, just like I said, nothing's really changed since last April, and it should be also rejected on that alone.
Well, thanks very much for providing those comments. I want to open it up to members of the board if they have any questions for Doug or anyone else in the room. I'm not seeing any flailing or any. Oh, I got one. Matt.
Just for clarification, you're at the property that is just to the right. If you're looking north-south of
facing the properties that I'm to the right. Yeah, I'm on the east side.
So you would be most affected if we were to grant the driveway.
Yeah, I would be very affected.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
David, go for it.
Mr. Weston, could you give us your interpretation of the phrase "the character of the neighborhood," and in what way this this proposed development violates that?
I think I already did that, but the character of our neighborhood is, we're primarily family, family-owned houses. Right now, there's just 2 rental properties. You've got the one at 14 George Street, and that has a cottage in back of that, which should be up for review itself. But and you have this property next to us at 9 George Street. Everybody else owns their house. Well, there's one other rental at 16. But we've got several young families coming into the street now with children, and even though it's only 2 cars, or she says it's only 2 cars, there's still going to be more traffic. And backing out, if you back 5 cars out of that driveway in a day's time, you're really taking a chance on backing into school kids or somebody else's car going by. I mean, she says that the street's empty most of the time, but there's a lot of times when it's not. As far as the character, like I said, it's small. It should be small family-owned housing, not renters. We don't. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with renters, and I don't want to be labeled as an anti-renter, but we've been here forever, and we just don't want to see any change like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, I'm seeing no unmuting, no flailing. Thank you very much, Mr. Weston, and everyone gathered with you for providing your perspective. I'm gonna.
Oh, wait.
Oh, go for it.
No, I wanted to speak.
Oh, sorry about that. Go.
Okay.
I told you they might want to speak.
We're probably one of the oldest on the street, but it's more like a hotel here now. My son come to visit me from North Carolina. He couldn't even turn in my own driveway to visit me. Had to maneuver his truck around to get in. And right now you can look, there's 3 cars on the street. And when they rent it, there'll be 6 or 7 cars on the street when they're coming or going.
Visitors.
Huh?
Visitors.
Yeah.
Company.
Yeah. And I don't know the answer, but it's not a hotel.
And do you mind just introducing yourself?
Betty LaCharity.
Great. And fair to say everything you're saying is true?
Yes, it is true. Yes. Yes.
Right. Want to get that little requirement in there.
Oh, no. I'm telling you the truth. This is not a hotel street, and that's what it's becoming. And the cars come and go all the time with the schools. There's not room to park on the street. It's ridiculous. I mean, come up here and see it and be here. And then they slam the car doors at night, wake us up. And that's normal for kids today. I mean, this is a residential. She can't control all her renters all the time. There's a motorcycle in the driveway that woke me up the other night. 5 cars and a motorcycle. Be 2 cars in the back. Come and see the place. Don't sit there. Come up and see it. And see if you want to live across the road with a young family next door with 2 kids, you wouldn't want to live here with that. That's all I've got to say. And I keep saying it, and we keep coming back again and again to put it down. And I don't know the answer anymore. I know she wants to be a renter. Go down on West Street and rent. Don't come up here where there's no room. Come and see it. That's all I have to say. And I know somebody else wants to speak. They can say the same thing.
Maria, did you want to speak? Yeah, Maria.
Yeah, Maria, I got one more that wants to talk.
Great.
I'll put her on.
You want to talk?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put somebody. Marie, go ahead. Mike couldn't even get in the driveway.
Okay. I live across the street. I'm number 10, and this is the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth.
That's right.
Anyway, in March, I had the virus, and I had to call the ambulance. I had to walk. They had to walk me out of to the end of the driveway. Well, they went down and turned around in the parking lot at the school and come back and pick me up. It's our road is very, very narrow. In the wintertime, that's another thing. In the wintertime, they park out there when the red light isn't on, that it's a blizzard or something, but it snows just the same. The snowplow comes, goes around the cars because they're out in the driveway, out in the road, not in their driveway, because there's no telling them they have to be out in their driveway. Snowplow comes around, goes around, snowplow comes back. Who gets it? I do, and my neighbor, the snow. It builds up in our driveway. It's just too small. The kids, we got sidewalks. Children don't walk on the sidewalks. They walk in the road. Right. The cars come down through here very fast. We used to have a dead end sign up there. They took it away from us, never told us they were going to do it, but it's still, you can't go out the other end. It's still a dead end. We got all kinds of things going on up here, and she wants to build another cottage over there and add more houses. She's got all these plans, but no solutions to the problem that there is. And I don't think it should go through. No. I really don't. And this is the 3rd time we've come up and said basically the same thing. And I think it's overdoing it. That's right. I mean, 3 times we haven't changed a bit. And every time it's getting worse over there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for that.
We hope it doesn't go through.
Well, thanks for that perspective. Can you just say your name for the record? I don't know that we caught it.
Marie Miller.
Great. Any questions for Marie from board members? Thank you very much. I hope you're feeling well now. If anybody else wants to do musical chairs, please feel free.
No, coming back. Go ahead.
You want to talk?
I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to talk, but not here.
Great. Well, I think we're at the point where we'll ask your camera to sit down from presenter mode and call up anyone else who wants to provide testimony. But thanks very much for offering your perspective.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to move you back over, Doug. Thank you very much. It looks like we've got 2 hands raised. One is from, I'm going to guess that it is Michael Moran was the first hand that I saw up. So do you want me to bring him over or just allow him to talk, Kevin?
So I'm seeing in the chat, we've got, in addition to Michael Moran, Randy Castle would like to speak as well. I assume he's next after Michael Moran, and then the applicant would like a chance to briefly respond, which we do typically offer at the very end. So go for it, Eric. You're in charge. What should we do?
Okay, I will bring him over then, since that's what we've been doing. So, Michael, I'm assuming it's you. I'm going to bring you over as a panelist. And then Randy will bring you over next. And I may... All right, we'll hopefully get this going here. Okay, you can unmute yourself, please.
I think I'm muted.
Yep,
you're good.
Yes, this is Michael Moran, and I'm going to give you my opinion. It is the truth in my opinion, but I wanted to speak. Can you turn your computer off? Yeah, sorry, we have dual computers here. I'll just go into the room. Yeah, I wanted to just briefly speak from my perspective about the strategic importance of George Street. And George Street is one of only two direct accesses to not only to the Winooski educational system, but also to the recreational fields that are part of the educational system. The George Street sidewalk is used, not only by students and teachers and administrators, but also the public uses it to access the center and the recreational fields. It is a very narrow street, and I think that the priority of the city should be the safe access of all the people that are entering this complex. And finally, I also think about the situation, hopefully would never occur, but if there was a need to get multiple emergency vehicles to the school, that they would be able to get there immediately without any hindrance. And also, I think that the priority for all the increased traffic that I believe is going to be using the parking lot is an unobstructed view of those individuals that are using the sidewalk to get to and from the school system. And those are the comments that I have. I don't directly live on George Street. I think the comments that have been expressed by our neighbors there are quite valid. I can't attest to that because I don't live in that street. But I wanted to make the point of the strategic importance of George Street to the school system and the recreational fields.
Thank you very much for that perspective. Any members of the board have questions or comments? Great. Well, thank you very much for providing that testimony. I think we'll ask you to sit down and call up Mr. Castle.
Yep, I will bring up Randy Castle here next. And then, okay, he should be coming in here momentarily, I hope.
Got to adjust the bunny ears.
Right. Okay, here we go. And then Randy will ask you to unmute yourself as well. There you go.
All right. There I go.
How's it going?
My name is Randy Castle, and I'm going to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. That's the only way I know how to deal with it. First, I'd like to start off by saying you guys are losing a good guy with Doug Johnson, and I loved his line that he used when he left, when he said, "Why do I want to stay around for something that's been cut down already twice and vote on it again for the third time?" So obvious you're losing a very intelligent man there. You probably should have tried to keep. The other thing is the young lady, Suzanne, very long talker. A lot of talk was very, very unnecessary and not needed. It meant nothing to anybody on this street, and it meant nothing to me. and also her renters, who really cares? I know nobody on the DBR or DRB cares about who she rented to. It means nothing about what we are talking about here tonight. I want all the DBR people to stay focused on our issue. Our issue is a cottage in the back. I was going to send out a question near to all you guys and ladies. If you own a house and you have a neighbor, can we put a house in your backyard? Would you be happy with that? I'm not happy. If you're looking at the houses, I'm on the left side. I have grandkids now. I have 7. My grandkids come here, and now they're going to be looking at a old cottage with 4 or 5 people in there. The other thing, she said her tenants that she has now loves it. Wrong again. You guys are getting a lot of wrong information, and I'm not very happy about this. We talked to the kids last night, and I say kids because they're all 25 and 30. They do not want any part of this cottage. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think you may have a thing where everybody signed it saying we do not want this. I want the DR people to really pay attention to what I'm saying to you. This is not a game. This is not about parking. This is about my backyard and putting a house in my backyard. I'm not happy, and I think you can tell by my sense, and I'm being pretty cool about the whole darn thing. Parking, that is a total joke. There's not one of you guys and gals who can't see through that. You shouldn't be on the board. It's like me with my golf game. When I'm sitting on my couch, I got 400 par every day. But when I go out and play golf, it doesn't happen. This parking will never, ever happen. The kids already said it. I've already seen it in real life. This does not happen. Someone's pipe dreaming. And again, I want the DRB people to really, really pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm very, very, very serious. They've done nothing since we talked last time. They put on new siding. They put on a new roof. The guy's a great worker. I got nothing against him. I do not know her. But again, I want to stay focused on the cottage. The parking, the street, it's busy. Everybody knows it's busy. Last but not least, we have COVID-19 in the area. I am so glad that you guys turned it down the last 2 times. If we brought in 4 more people here, we might have COVID-19. And again, I have 7 grandchildren. I do not want to mess around with that. So I'm asking all you guys and gals to step up and be a leader for Winooski, which I've been living all my life. And I want to keep it going in a positive way. This young lady, Susan, is all about money. If you guys, again, paid attention to what she said, her renting, she's done this. And like I said, the other 2 renters, who cares what they say? I don't care, and I'm sure you guys didn't either. But we got to stick to the fact. The fact is the cottage in the back. I don't care if she turns it forward, sideways, or upside down. I do not want a cottage in the back where it's going to interfere with me, my kids, or anybody else. Last but not least, I think someone says Miss Baker may be a lawyer. She may understand this maybe better than all of you. The value of my house is going to drop if we take and put a little cottage in the back. Again, DR people, please think about the Winooski and the people. Don't think about the mighty dollar for somebody. It's not all about the mighty dollars. Everybody said I'm probably the youngest guy in the whole street. So, this is a very, very nice, calm street, and I want to keep it that way. And I'm begging for this crew that I'm looking at to help me, my wife, and my grandkids out. And that's all I have to say, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for providing that perspective. Any members of the board have questions for Mr. Castle? All right, thank you very much for your time. We will ask you to kind of virtually sit down. Thank you very much. And so we do typically allow the applicant to kind of come back after hearing the concerns raised by adjoining property owners. I do want to keep in mind that we are experiencing kind of some level of diminished returns because this is the 3rd time we've had a meeting about this property, and I think that Suzanne, you actually did a great job of anticipating what was going to be said. So just with that in mind, feel free to come back on up.
So Kevin,
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin, before we bring Suzanne back up,
Oh.
there are two other folks in the attendees list that have their hands up.
Oh, sorry about that.
So I will just bring them up one at a time, if that's okay with you. Or
Great.
Random order here. So I'm going to start with Jacqueline Cole. Jacqueline, I'm going to promote you up first. Or
not Jacqueline.
Right.
So if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah. So this is Nate Goddard. I live on 6 George Street. My wife is Jackie. But no, I mean, Journey and Greg have done a great job fixing up that house. There's no denying that. I mean, they've done a good job, and I haven't had any issues with the renters. But I do see the the conflict between the neighbors and just being able to look over in their backyard and view a cottage. One of the issues that I also see is I do see an issue with parking, because I have been seeing it in the winter where the plow truck comes up. If there's cars on both sides of the street, that plow truck just drops a big load of snow off up in front of my house and then backs up and returns and goes away. So, I mean, there is a legitimate, I think, issue with regards to the parking. But again, I mean, they've done a great job fixing up the existing house that's there. But I do see how the cottage could potentially impact some values to the neighbors. And, while that's not like necessarily my business so much, I mean, I do understand why neighbors would be upset with the cottage going in the back.
Great. Well, thanks very much for providing that perspective. Any board members have questions? Seeing a lot of shaking heads. Well, thank you very much for popping up and providing that testimony. Thanks for waiting so long to do it. And we'll move on to the next hand.
All right, so I will send Nate back. And I believe the next hand that I saw up was a Loki 425. So we'll need to get a name on that one.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. I'm Valerie Gilmet, and I live at 20 George Street.
Okay.
And I just want to say I'm not directly impacted by the cottage either. They've done a wonderful job in repairing the house. Have nothing against that. But as far as what it does to the neighborhood is not right as far as what is going on here. We are not dense. Well, we try not to be densely populated, and it's definitely not rented area. We have a lot of traffic, and if the school is adding on to our parking lot, it's going to be atrocious. I can't even get into my driveway as it is when school is in session in the morning or at night when the parents come. And I believe that George Street should also be one way parking on one side. And that's just going to make it even worse. So for the people that are here, that live here, I think it would be nice if we had some on-street parking if we needed it also. So that's all I had to say. And I swear.
Thanks for remembering. I'm lax on that recently. So thanks very much for providing that perspective. Any board members have questions? Seeing a lot of shaking heads. I think we're all good. Thank you very much.
Right.
And Eric, any more hands? Chad, anything?
That was the last hand that I had seen. There was some written. There are a few people on that had provided written testimony as well. So you had all that information, and all the written testimony is included as part of the official record as exhibits. So that will all be carried forward as well. So So yes, those are all the hands that I've seen or that I have right now.
Great. So we do typically invite the applicant back up. I'm not going to repeat all what I said like 5 minutes ago. So go for it.
Yep. I'll bring Suzanne back up.
Welcome back. You are muted. Go for it.
Still under oath.
You're good.
Great. So first of all, I think through all the neighborhood testimony, the city definitely needs to address this parking issue on the street. I can't magically make it one-sided parking. I'm happy to help work on that with the neighbors. I also think the school does need to take some responsibility for the impact that they're having on the street. It's just really hard that, I'm sorry, my husband's listening to me. I can't hear myself. So I guess the school is strongly impacting the street. That proposal happened at the last meeting, and the neighbors did not say anything about it or really talk to the impact it was going to have. I wonder if there had been more discussion for the George Street aspect. We talked a lot about the front of the school, but we didn't really talk about this impact and if it was possible to somehow connect them and things like that. So I guess it's hard for me as a property owner, first of all, to feel like I have to be responsible for the impact the school is having. And then the fact that the city hasn't addressed the emergency vehicle access on the street, like I can't really control that. So that's one thing. The other things are, sorry, I'm very tired. I have a newborn. So I guess the other part of it is, it feels like the DRB process really slants toward property owners. And I feel that as 10 years of renting, that renters should have a voice in the process. And that's why I did bring, all these letters and all these things from tenants saying that this is really needed housing. Like this is not available in the area at the price and the quality we're offering. It's just one little drop in the bucket, but as you heard from my tenants and looked at what they've said in the written statements, like if it's you that's renting, it's your life, it's like years of your life that you're spending at a place. And my tenants stay. The current people have been there since we finished the project. And that's because it's great. I mean, they might look around, but what we offer with washer, dryer, dishwasher, like this is stuff that you can't really get in most places. Trying to wrap it up. So I think there's another thing where like on the street, it feels like if you're a family of 5 or 7 people, if you're biologically related, you have a right to live in one of these houses. It just feels like that's not always what happens for people. And, they may not have that. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a right to live on the street. The other thing, if we're Doug is very worried about his property. He's a beautiful property. I get that. And we're happy to put in a 6-foot fence, as I said in the last meeting, all the way. So someone opens their car door, they're not even touching his lawn, which he keeps beautiful and manicured. I get why he's saying that. So we're willing to put in, I lived in a house that had a fence right on the driveway, and I'm happy to put that in to protect his property. And I really get that. The opening the car doors that Doug said, again, if you allow us the encroachment, we will be able to allow, side-by-side parking. I don't understand what Doug said about being not complete application. We are, the reason we're so invested, the reason we've spent a year, actually it's been 2 years, like we've been dreaming of this for a long time, is because we're really invested in the street. We're really invested in the property. We're not intending to sell it ever. So you could be guaranteed that we will continue to manage it well, the way we've managed the current one and the future. The school also could offer a crossing guard for for if children are walking in the street and we feel it's unsafe, we should ask the school to provide a crossing guard. And I just think it's important. Oh, the other thing is that for emergency vehicles, which has come up a few different ways in these meetings, from what I could see from that, I want to say it was like La Fountain Street proposal, where they put the like road in with the like turnaround on the last DRB meeting that I was at, the one in April. From what I could research, 20 feet is necessary for emergency vehicle access. So it's not necessarily my responsibility. I'm happy to work with, maybe Jesse can tell me, sorry, Ms. Baker, I don't know what you prefer to be called, but maybe Eric and Jesse could help me to like know the process for proposing that. And I'm happy to work on that. I've just been working really hard on this proposal and also on my work as a teacher during COVID. So I haven't really worked on that, but I'm happy to. So the last thing I just want to say is that this process does favor property owners and does not really give voice to renters, who are an important and financially contributing, but also, you know, with their work and their energy. Renters are very important to our Winooski community. This is zoned for this use. So I guess that's all I have to say is that this is what it's zoned for. It might be different than it has in the past, and change is really hard. But also I think it's important to gently increase renting capacity in the city. It's very, very needed. I mean, we're at 0.8%. A healthy market is 3 to 5%. So many people in this area are burdened by rent, and we're trying to reduce that. We're just trying to do our part of helping. We have a great ability and guide. So I'm rambling, but I'll stop. But thank you so much for considering the proposal.
Thank you very much. Any final questions? Matt, was that a hand? Was that a wave? Just a wave. Any final questions?
You're like,
from
get
board?
Off the screen. Get off the screen. Stop talking.
All right. I think that will conclude our public testimony for this agenda item, 9 George Street. So technically, we now move on in our agenda. There is one secret little agenda item left, which is officer elections. So because we recently had board members reappointed and newly appointed, I think Eric has told me that we need to elect officers, even though we just did that like 3 or 4 months ago. So I don't really know the process, but I'm just going to make one up. We do have a current slate of officers that exists. There's no reason that needs to stay the same, but we can have it stay the same if we want to. Eric, can you just remind us what our current officer slate is?
Yeah, before I do that, I just maybe you just wanted to go over what the next steps will be for now that the public hearing is closed, what the DRB is going to do next, so that the folks
sure.
on the call know how this is going to work as far as the deliberation is concerned.
Sure, great suggestion. So the public portion of the hearing is now concluded. After we elect officers, we will go into what's called deliberative session. That may end up being tonight. It may end up being on a different day. We do have the ability to reconvene for deliberative session when our public hearings go long and we're tired and we want to collect our thoughts and talk about it on some other night. That deliberative session is not open to the public, so we can kind of freely discuss the applications. Eric, you want to just down? Yeah, got it. Sorry, we're removing Suzanne's other computer as a panelist. So whenever the deliberative session is, we'll have it. We will come out with a written decision. I believe that has to be done within 14 days of today. And that will be provided to all folks who receive statutory notice. It will also be publicly available, like everything else we do. And that's it. Eric, did I miss anything?
I don't think so, but I did lose Aaron here. Hang on, sorry. I guess I moved him off instead. Sorry about that, Aaron. I will bring you back.
I assume that Aaron's been listening attentively.
I noticed. Sorry about that, Aaron. No, that basically covers everything. The only correction I would make is once the DRB finishes deliberation, there's 45 days to issue the decision. So between the close of the hearing and the issuance of the decision is a 45-day period, is what's permitted by statute. We generally do not take that long, but it also sometimes does take several weeks to get everything turned around, depending on how long the deliberation needs to last.
And I did see a question from Suzanne in the comments whether she can submit her comments in writing. I assume the question is whether the kind of statement that was read at the beginning can be submitted in writing. My preference would actually be to have a closed record of what was submitted prior to the hearing, which everyone kind of had notice of and was able to read, rather than accept new documents after, especially if we heard you read them, just because it raises issues of folks not getting notice of the documents and not being able to respond to them. And it creates the potential for kind of unfairness from everybody else who might want to read it and react to it. And I don't think we want to get like a series of additional documents trailing the public hearing. Eric, does that sound right to you?
I believe that's at the pleasure of the DRB based on our rules and procedures. I think you do have that option to accept new documents. Since it was generally read into the record, I think it could be accepted as a document because it was read into the record. That way it's a written document as well. I guess I would leave that up to the pleasure of the board.
All right, pleasure of the board. What do we think?
I don't see a problem with accepting it as new evidence. I know I've seen us do it before, where we've had documents sent in that were emailed as recently as a couple hours before the meeting, and it's just new evidence that was presented to us. That
difference is this would be after the meeting. That's the difference I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
If it feels like substantially the same information that was presented in tonight's meeting, I'm not sure if it would be necessary other than just to feel like you're tagging all bases. But I feel like we received all the information that was presented tonight thoroughly.
David?
I agree with Kevin and Elsie on this one. I don't think it's necessary.
Aaron or Caitlin, any thoughts?
I would refer to the precedent that's been set in similar situations for documents that haven't been submitted beforehand.
I don't know that we've ever gotten a document after the hearing. So we're getting comments in the chat that I'm generally going to ignore because you can't see each other's chat messages. But Aaron, what do you think?
I was going to say, I don't think it's needed. And I guess if we don't have something for this formal public hearing, I'm wondering how we can consider it after the fact.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like, it's just really for convenience of what we've already heard. I would kind of trust our collective memories. And we're getting a message, you didn't know the procedure, no worries. So it seems like we've resolved the issue. Congratulations to us. Okay.
And I'll follow up my statement saying, I don't think it's necessary, but I don't see it as being a problem if we did.
Yeah, my concern, just to put it out there, is that if we give the applicant the opportunity to submit something, we should give the neighbors the opportunity, and then the applicant responds, and then we're 7 levels deep.
Yes.
Yeah. So great. I think we covered what happens from here. And barring objection, I would suggest we move on to officer elections. And Eric, can you remind us who our current officers are?
Yes, thank you very much. So this is just to kind of bring this back to where you started it, Kevin. Since we're on a schedule now to appoint members on to coincide with our fiscal year, so terms running from July 1 through June 30. And so each year, since we have basically a round of appointments on staggered terms, we've also identified in our rules and procedures that we would annually re-elect officers. So this being the first meeting since the appointments were made, this is the time when we would normally elect officers. Currently, Kevin is the chair, obviously, since he was running the meeting tonight. Matt is our vice chair, and Harland is our secretary. Generally, that role is done by me anyway, as far as recording minutes and things of that nature. So it doesn't really require much other than being the person for when an appeal to a decision that I make as the zoning administrator is submitted to the city. Harland is the person who gets it officially as the secretary of the DRB. So those are the three officer positions that we would be looking to elect tonight.
So we can do nominations from the floor. We can do discussion. If anybody wanted to nominate the current slate for reappointment, you could do that, but I will leave it to folks who are not me to voice their thoughts.
I would make a motion to nominate the current slate for reelection.
Any second?
I second that. I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You've been doing a hell of a job.
I've been doing a hell of something. All in favor of the motion as proposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I will abstain as a current office holder. Matt, are you also
abstain as well.
abstaining?
Yes.
Great. Looks like motion carries. Thank you very much for the vote of confidence. And I think that does it for our agenda, our public agenda. I just want to say,
there's actually two other items. There is
my God,
city updates and other business. I'll refrain from any city updates at this point unless there's anything that the city manager wants to add. And the only other item I would note under other business is our next meeting would be tentatively scheduled for August, I want to say 18th. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but that's the 20th. The 20th. Thank you. The third Thursday in August. The deadline for any materials to get onto a public hearing for that meeting is next Friday. As of now, I have not received anything. So my inclination is that if nothing does come in by that date, I don't think we have any other business that we would need to conduct. So we would potentially just cancel that meeting.
Eric, Kevin, can I actually say one thing?
Yeah, you're in charge.
So I am actually here solely today at Eric, who's right there on my screen, as his technology assistant. When we have these meetings that are recorded, we always like to have two city staff on just in case something goes wrong. So here is his assistant only, but I have to say, as somebody who has sat through a lot of public Zoom meetings recently, you guys top amongst them. Well done on very well organized, active engaged participation. So kudos, well done.
Thank you very much. And thanks for sitting through it. All right. Are we good on the public agenda?
We are. The only other item we have is adjournment. So if you want to go into deliberative session, I can kick everybody else off and we can have that. That's the one disadvantage to the webinar function. We don't have the option to do a breakout room. But we can just remove everybody that's not a DRB member from the meeting.
Yeah, so my suggestion would be that we adjourn and begin deliberative session, but the first thing that we talk about is whether we should continue it tonight or do it on some other day. And that wouldn't need to be warned because it's a continuation of a closed session. Is that right, Eric?
I believe that is correct. Yes, we can adjourn the meeting and then enter into deliberative session if that's the way you want to do it.
All right. Unless anyone disagrees, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
So moved by Matt. Any seconds?
Yep.
Second, first official DRB action by Caitlin. Congratulations. Other than voting, all in favor? Aye, raise your hands.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. We're going to kick all of you out. Thanks for participating.